Hi there, Josh here, and welcome to a short hobbyist novitiate video. This time we're doing Painting Imperialis, where we paint up a Legimp model in the colours of one of the 18 legions or their solar counterparts. We're aiming for these videos to be beginner friendly, but hopefully introduce a few intermediate techniques along the way. In this video I'm going to be looking at the 19th Legion, the Raven Guard. Grab a hot drink and a biscuit and let's dig in. So the Raven Guard are all about stealth. They're the Night Boys of the Warhammer universe. These guys are black, and with black comes a certain simplicity, but also a few simple steps that you can take to really execute it nicely. So I'm starting off with some Abaddon Black. I'm putting this over the top of a Chaos Black Prime. The two are very similar, but Abaddon Black has a very slightly different finish, so if I make any mistakes I can just come back over and cover up again much more easily this way. Just putting a good coat over everything. After that I'm coming in with Dawnstone. There we go, and doing a very nice light dry brush across the entire vehicle. This first step is more or less just about picking out the shapes, working out where the paint's going to be, and then I'll do a second pass after this. Here we go for the second pass. This is a slightly heavier dry brush, but it's also a little more focused, looking at where the light is going to land on the model, picking out the shapes in even more detail. You don't want to go too hard with this or you'll lose the feeling that this is a black vehicle, but you want enough that you can really see what's going on. The challenge with black is that it can end up being way too dark across the entire model and you lose that contrast and that visual interest, but just a nice light dry brush of grey can pick everything out without it feeling like it's not a black surface. This is definitely one of the simpler schemes for all of these videos that I've done, but I also think it's actually one of the best. It's come out really nicely, and I think that's because there are so few steps. It's just about executing each step really carefully and really nicely. So there we go, I'm just giving a slightly heavier coat to the top of the surfaces there rather than the bottoms, just to give a little bit of a gradient across the model still from light to dark. And you can see now it's starting to really read as a black object that has some light shining on it. A little sip of tea there. I've left a lot of these steps in this video in real time rather than speeding them up, otherwise it was going to be a really short video. The entire model took me about half an hour to start to finish, where some of these have taken twice that, if not 3 times. See the Salamanders video coming next. Once we're done with that, I'm just going to come along and pick out all of the metallic details, so the ram on the front, the exhausts, and the guns with a little tiny bit of Leadbelcher. Any nice dark steel colour will do the job wonderfully. One of the nice things about painting over a black surface with metallics is that if you don't get everything, it just sort of ends up looking like shadows anyway. You get a bit more forgiveness from the model there. So picking out these exhausts nice and carefully. I think by this point I'd gotten the hang of painting around the rhino. I knew my 4 brush strokes for each exhaust. There's definitely something to be said for painting the same model a few times. You really get a feel for how it paints, and I think the process sort of speeds up as you paint more and more of the same model. If you had a list with, say, 40 rhinos, the first one might take you a little while, but by the end you'd be bashing them out in no time. This is a great scheme actually for a large army because it's so simple but really quite effective, so you could paint them all up really, really quickly. So now that we're done with the metallics on the weapons, I'm just painting in the track. The shot's a little bit out of focus, but it does get better in a moment. I think the key, there we go, nice and sharp. The key with painting the tracks on these models is to thin your paint just slightly more than you would otherwise. Just a little bit further, and then it flows nicely into those recesses without too much work, and you can generally get away with just one coat across the whole thing. Using a nice thin brush to just get in there, paint a little bit of the tops of the wheels, but not the entire thing. Enough to show that they're there. So now we've put some decals on it, and you can see this one's really coming together already. I'm really happy with how it looks, but there is one final step, one little bit of secret sauce that I think elevates this above just a regular black paint scheme, and that's the raw umber oil wash that I apply relatively heavily over the entire model. You could, if you don't want to use oils, get away with using something like Agrex Earthshade here. I think it would work well, but it wouldn't quite give you the same matte finish that you get from the oil paints. This heavy wash gives you a really nice sort of dark brown colour in the recesses, just adding a little bit more visual interest to the model, rather than it just looking quite grayscale and sort of monochromatic. A little bit of that warm brown just gives it a little bit of a, just gives it a little something something. You can see I'm not really being too careful, definitely putting it heavier over the metallics than the rest of the vehicle, but giving everything a pretty good looking at, especially focusing on those bottom sides of objects and those recesses where the shadows would fall naturally. I like to put a good coat over all of the decals as well, just to knock back the bright white on those, make them look slightly less like they are stickers and a little bit more like they're painted onto the hull of the vehicle. And yeah, that's it. Super simple. 4 steps. Really easy, but I think it looks really effective. If I were going to do this again, I'd probably pick out those little window viewports on the front. I missed those on a few of these, and I'm kicking myself looking back at it all, because the ones where you pick them out I think just look so much better. But yeah, overall really happy with this. Definitely a good one to be painting up across an army. I think it would look really good on the table, and I'm really tempted. I say that every time, but eventually I'm going to do a Space Marine army alongside my Solar, and it's going to be a real struggle to pick one. Yeah, that's all for this time. I will see you next time.